All right, good evening, guys. We're going to get started in a second. Could everybody take your seats so we can get started? Good evening, IND. Welcome to our, what month is it? October meeting. We're getting very close to Election Day, so I hope everyone has plans for GOTV for the next 3 weeks of your lives. We don't have too much to share tonight, but we have a special guest who's going to talk to us about the ballot initiatives that are going to be very critical to know about.
Keep going.
There's some technical work going on behind me. But a couple of opportunities I wanted to mention. So over the weekend, this is all in our newsletter, but there's going to be a bus to Pennsylvania for John Fetterman and Josh Shapiro. And Hal, I don't know if there's anything else you want to raise about that.
No, just that buses leave 8 o'clock around, you should get to Union Square by 8 o'clock. Time for the Vote Blue website. $10 per bus. And probably about 11 or so buses leave around 6 around New York City. The races are tight. Fetterman is unfortunately not losing, but also catching up. That's Brianna, I think, so we have to reach the new city.
Hal, I don't know if everyone at home is getting the audio. Do you want to do a little overview?
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. So let me just repeat. I'm going on a bus this Saturday. Actually, it's my hometown, Easton, PA. I was born and raised there. And the buses leave from Union Square around 8:30, get there at 8 o'clock. Go online, Vote Blue website, so you can register yourself. There's a $10 fee to get the seat on the bus. It's extremely important that we do this. Pennsylvania is a key swing state, particularly the governor's race, because the governor appoints the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State controls the election, the electoral process. So if we don't want to, and Mastriano, the Republican candidate, in addition to being a reincarnation of Mussolini, is also an election denier. There'd be a real problem if this man gets in, because he could cause all kinds of havoc. Not to mention that if Fetterman, the Democratic candidate for Senate, wins, that will flip a red seat to blue. This is all Pat Toomey's old seat. So we want Fetterman to win. He's in a tight race. Dr. Oz, I can't believe the wizard of Dr. Oz, whatever, is the wizard. Not the wizard, it's supposedly a Dr. Oz. I don't know where he got his medical degree from. But he's catching up to Fetterman. We want Fetterman to get in there. And Susan Wild is the local congressional candidate. Very good person. She's having a bit of a problem too. So please come out, help me and others keep Pennsylvania blue this Saturday. They're going every Saturday through Election Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Hal, and thanks for spreading the good word about the bad candidates. And then the other opportunity is to go to the Hudson Valley for Pat Ryan. That's another race that we have our eyes on. And of course, you can stay local for Max Rose, who has an event, I believe, on Saturday, the 22nd at 11 a.m. And the details were in our newsletter. And if you have any questions, let us know. But if you're free this weekend, definitely get out there and knock some doors. And early voting starts on October 29th. So you better get there bright and early. And I think everyone should get a primer on the ballot initiatives. So I'm going to hand it over to Jana from NYPIRG.
Thank you. Okay, I'm talking to the microphone. So hi everyone, my name is Jana and I'm from NYPIRG. I'm NYPIRG's democracy issue coordinator. So we work to register voters, to do get out the vote efforts. And so this year we were doing get out we were working to register voters, particularly young voters on college campuses. And now we're pivoting to our Get Out the Vote outreach and education. And part of that education this year is information on the ballot proposals that are on the back of the ballot. So statewide, there are 4 ballot proposals, statewide, there's 1 ballot proposal. And then in the city, there are 4 ballot proposals. So statewide, there's the Environmental Bond Act, and then there are 3 other proposals that the city will be voting on. I just want to say that in the past, New Yorkers have approved 70% of statewide ballot proposals since 1985, exactly 39 out of 55. So that's just some information. But last year, there were 5 questions on the back of the ballot, only 2 of them passed. So now I will go into more detail about each of the questions. And I apologize in advance. I'm going to be reading off of my piece of paper because there are a lot of details on each of the questions. So the first question, as I was saying, is the Environmental Bond Act. That is the statewide question. It's formally called the Clean Air, Clean Water, and Green Jobs Environmental Bond Act of 2022. And this question came from a bill passed by the state legislature in 2019. And then it was slightly modified and passed again in 2021 to create a robust effort to respond to and adapt to the impacts of climate change on natural resources and infrastructure. The Bond Act would authorize the creation of state debt and the sale of state bonds of up to $4.2 billion to fund environmental protection, natural restoration, resilience, and clean energy projects. Funds will be used for capital projects related to design, planning, site acquisition, demolition, construction, and reconstruction, and rehabilitation. And the state has proposed allocation as followed. So $1.1 billion for restoration and flood risk reduction, such as coastal rehabilitation and shoreline restoration projects, $650 million for open space land conservation and recreation, such as creation of fish hatcheries and farmland protections, $1.5 billion for climate change management, such as green buildings, renewable energy, carbon sequestration and methane emissions mitigation, forest and habit restoration, green roofs, community gardens, and upgrading to community cooling centers, and $650 million for water quality improvements and resilient infrastructure, such as wastewater infrastructure and municipal stormwater projects. And a goal of the act is to have 40% of the funds directed towards directly benefit disadvantaged community as an environmental justice measure. The state estimates that the funds from this act could create an estimated of 84,000 new jobs during the spending timeframe. And the purpose of this proposal is to authorize the creation of state debt and the sale of state bonds in the amount of $4.2 billion, which is the total of those separate dollars that I was saying before, for the projects that I mentioned. And if approved, the proposal would allow the state to borrow up to that amount to provide funding for capital projects. And if passed, the state can immediately borrow the funds for the project, and the bonds must be used within 30 years. And if the ballot proposal passes, it will be the first bond act for the environment the state has enacted in 26 years. So that's an overview of the Environmental Bond Act. That will be the first question on the back of the ballot for New York City residents, and the only question on the back of the ballot for, across the state. Mhm. I know, it's very wordy. Mhm.
Does anybody bother looking at the map? There's a country above us called Canada. In Canada, there's a place called Quebec. Quebec has lots of lakes, lots of rivers, and you can have renewable energy known as hydroelectric. How come they don't mention that?
I don't know, and
Has anyone ever thought about that up in Albany?
I hope so. With me being,
It's renewable.
yeah.
It's water.
Coming from NYPIRG, we're only doing educational outreach on the proposal, so I don't know. They should look into that. You have meetings scheduled in Albany? Yes.
So is it, what's the mechanism? How is the money going to be allotted? I mean, government agency, city or?
So the state,
applies to somebody in the state?
yes.
Proposal?
So the state comptroller is in charge of the funds, and the state comptroller could take out bonds and they can use the money immediately.
Please repeat the last question. So I think it was a question about Canada.
I think that was in response to the.
Yeah. It said,
722. Yeah, I
"Will you
think that
repeat
was
the question?"
Yeah, Jane, I think the question was, has hydroelectric been contemplated, given our proximity to Canada?
Yeah, when you answer, can you try to like also put the question in? Like,
Yes,
so they can hear it.
yes.
Tweet after the meeting.
So for the answer to the question, as someone from NIPERG, I don't know how to answer it. Just because we're just doing educational outreach, like we're not saying if we support it / what's in the bill. But I can say the money that's allocated that I mentioned is what's in the bill. Yes. So, does anyone have any other questions about the Environmental Bond Act? Or how it works? Okay, so now moving on to the city proposal. So the first city proposal is creating a just and equitable city for all charter preamble amendment. So currently the New York City Charter doesn't have a preamble. And this measure would create a preamble to the New York City Charter that includes a statement of values and vision. The ballot proposal says that aims to create a just and equitable city for all and emphasizes the city's racial diversity. And the preamble includes a statement that the city must strive to remedy past and continuing harms and to reconstruct, revise, and reimagine our foundational structures, institutions, and laws to promote justice and equity for all New Yorkers. And the preamble is intended to guide city government in fulfilling its duties. The proposals, like the following proposals that I'll also talk about, were born from former Mayor de Blasio's Racial Justice Commission. The mayor convened the Racial Justice Commission in 2021 following the protests of systemic racism and police violence and the pandemic, obviously, that disproportionately affected people of color. And the Racial Justice Committee was tasked with examining structural and institutional racism across the city and recommending amendments that would rectify those issues. So the ballot proposal 1 across the city is what the Racial Justice Committee recommended, along with the 2 other ballot proposals that just the city would have. So proposal 3 is creating a racial equity office, plan, and commission amendment. This measure would bring 3 new requirements to the city charter, mandating that all city agencies create racial equity plans every 2 years, establishing a new office of racial equity to coordinate racial equity planning across city government, and creating a commission on racial equity. So the office would support city agencies in improving access to city services and programs for those people and communities who have been negatively affected by previous policies or actions, and collect and report data related to equity. So New York City does not currently have an office that focuses on racial equity. This proposal provides the framework for creating this office. And then the mayor and the city agencies would be required to create citywide racial equity plans every 2 years to improve racial equity and justice, again, with guidance from the office that would be created with this proposal. And the plans would have data indicators to measure progress on racial equity work to show the effect the work has on well-being and disparities. And the first draft of the plan would be due in 2024, and the full report would be due in 2026. And lastly, in proposal 3, it would establish a commission on racial equity appointed by city elected officials. In making appointments to this commission, elected officials would be required to consider appointees who are representative of or have experience advocating for a diverse range of communities, and it would be made up of 15 New York City residents. The commission would identify and propose priorities to inform the racial equity planning process and review agency and citywide racial equity plans. And the commission would be the accountability measure on this proposal. So they would be able to publicly track agencies' compliance with the racial equity plans and would take complaints about agencies not following the plans. So that is the second proposal that just the city has.
No, you're fine.
Okay, cool. And then lastly, the third proposal that is just in the city, the fourth proposal that we'll see on our ballot because we have four, would be a true cost of living measure amendment to the city's charter. And this measure would mandate that the city government use a new method to calculate the true cost of living in the city. It would not include private, public, or informal assistance a person or household may receive as income. The current Racial Justice Commission has determined that the current poverty measures are not accurate for the city, and the new cost of living metric would provide an alternative to the current federal and city poverty limits that determine eligibility for public assistance programs, which are currently ineffective to measure the true cost of living because the current federal metrics determine the cost of living are antiquated, and the current city measure that determines the cost of living that we have includes public assistance as income. So the new true cost of living amendment would make it so that public assistance is not included in people's income when we're determining cost of living. And the updated measure based on actual household income required to meet the essential needs of the people in New York City as the amendment, and it would include costs related to housing, childcare, food, transportation, healthcare, clothing, shoes, hygiene products, household items, and telephone and internet services, among other things. And it would require that the city government to report annually on the true cost of living measure, and the Racial Justice Committee final report said that measuring the true cost of living was a necessary first step towards economic justice. So those are the four ballot questions. Again, I'm sorry, I was reading off of this. As you can see, it's all of the proposals are very wordy. And so just going through the details of what the proposals would actually do. And we do have some resources. So for the racial justice measure, I would recommend just going to the city's website. It's racialjustice.cityofnewyork.us/ballot. Do you want me to email that to you?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I was like, no, it's- do also.
Okay. What's the first one?
So it's racialjustice.cityofnewyork.us/ballot.
How do you spell ballot?
No, just one T. Yeah.
That's embarrassing.
It's not, I don't know if it's coming up as a hyperlink. It's the
I think
same,
the
right?
.us is.
Huh.
Okay. Well, if you copy and paste that into your
Yeah.
browser, you should be able to get there.
Yeah. And just this morning, the new school held a panel discussion on the three racial justice proposals that are on the back of the ballot. That was obviously this morning, so it was too late, but I believe that there should be more speaker events, and I'll look into that and I can email you or something. And then for the Bond Act question, a coalition member of ours is the EDF. So we have looked at their materials to do educational outreach on the Bond Act question. Yes. And then New York City Votes will have a guide that's posted soon with statements in support and opposition of each question on their website. They don't have it out yet, even though early voting starts on October 29th, but it will be posted soon. We don't know when. Yeah. Yes.
I'm curious about the advocates for the racial justice. It's great that Nyberg is doing something.
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking about these.
Yeah.
Now, are there like groups pushing? What's
That's
the message?
That's a good question. So the question is advocates for the racial justice proposals for people who are online. And I think there are people advocating for it. There's just not a lot of news coming out on the racial justice or any of the ballot questions really. I'm not sure why. Like, I know that,
Because no one's spending it.
yeah,
But that's what's curious, right? It's like, if this was a really useful, effective thing, I would think somebody could be. It just sort of calls into question what the.
yeah,
Because they don't feel it.
yeah. I don't know. Yeah. There are definitely groups supporting it. I just think that for like the media getting out information about the election since the midterm election, like it doesn't, the information doesn't come unless you're like seeking it out, I think, because we don't talk about it as much as we talk about general elections, you know? So that might be part of it. Yes. Yeah, so it's on the back, yes, so where on the ballot are these questions? They're on the back of the ballot. So you flip your ballot over and you'll see the questions, and on their sample ballots, you can look up and you'll see it on the back, and it'll just be like, I copy and pasted the exact language. I have it. Sorry. I copied and pasted the exact language from the sample ballots today. And so you can see it. They're just listed out briefly, and people will vote yes or no.
I was just gonna ask, does NYPIRG have like something on their website that has some more?
Yeah, so NYPIRG has, yeah, looking it up is, let's see. So I know, yeah, so let's see what comes up.
Mostly, I'm not sure if this,
We could
Yeah,
always find the
we'll
right.
find it,
link
I'll
and
send
send
it
it
out.
to folks.
Yes,
RAL PD also has it here.
yeah. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So NYPIRG, we're just doing educational outreach. As far as my position, I'm not doing like vote yes or vote no. Part of NYPIRG is doing vote yes for the Environmental Bond Act question, but it's not my job. I'm not. Yeah.
Would you answer that question?
That's a good question. I was thinking about that question before. Yeah. So I think the question is asking what the opponents of each of the questions would say. So just looking at articles, when I was reading up on the ballot questions, I think what someone would say for vote no on like the second proposal, which is creating an office. Let me see exactly what it is. Yeah, so it would be. So, oh wait, it's not this, it's the third. So it would be the Racial Equity Office Plan and Commission Amendment. It's like, how effective would that actually be? How do we hold these agencies that we've already created accountable? So I think that's what the vote no would be, like a bloated government. Yeah.
I can tip.
I think for the Environmental Bond Act, there could be a question of the amount of money, how the projects are selected, how procurement is happening. People might not want to vote for something that gives the state a lot of latitude. Like bonding authority, lets you take out debt. And I think, people have just kind of fiscal concerns and then concerns about what might actually be implemented. On the proposal to create the Racial Justice Office and Commission. Sorry, the kids in the back of the class are clowning around.
Just saying we don't want to go to a stadium.
Well, if they had a good environmental rationale for the stadium, then, that might be it. And then I think on, like you were saying, on the racial justice office and commission, I think that, people might have concerns about creating another office and more bureaucracy and like you said, the effectiveness of such an office. Yeah.
You want to spend $1 billion on blah, 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 blah. What's it going to cost me? And none of these proposals tell you why it won't cost New York State residents 2 cents.
Mhm.
And the problem is people are going to say to you, well, wait a minute, you're spending $6 billion, you're spending $4 billion. Where's this coming from?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it's opaque how the money is being spent and who's spending it, and that's not really articulated in probably what's going to be on the text of the proposal. And so I think people generally have concerns when they say the state is going to spend a bunch of money. Am I going to spend that money?
For the taxpayers will be paying $0 for the Environmental Bond Act. I know. People on the back of the ballot will be wondering that, I'm guessing, and same thing with like vote no. It's people could be in the camp of they don't want the state to incur any debt, and that is what the Environmental Bond Act is doing.
It's not really true. I mean, I'm going to vote for it. You incur debt, you've got to pay interest, and you've got to pay principal. So the idea that it's not because the taxpayers. The question is whether it's worth spending.
Yeah.
And also to play devil's advocate for a second with the 3 other questions, the New York Post about a month ago did their editorial. So of course we know that we should just usually vote against how they want. They said vote no on all of them. Basically for the bond proposal, they said too much spending. They're being fiscal hawks. And then for the rest of it, they just said basically this is overt wokeness caused by the de Blasio administration, as opposed to trying to go into the more nuanced things, which of course we as Democrats tend to do.
Art?
Yeah, are we have to.
No, this is just informational. Any other questions? Yes.
You can make an argument that the cost of living is problematic for anyone. The argument becomes one used for opposing finance.
Can you say more? Do you want to come up and
I don't necessarily want to come up. I don't think anyone needs to hear from me, but there's a strong argument that if it's not, if you're doing a proposal about what is the cost of living on a borough-wide basis, the proposal won't be for a hyper-local or each borough. Be able to do a cost of living assessment, but that is then becoming information. What is AMI? We're actually adding to an argument that AMI must be low no matter what. That's a good argument to make, except the city can't finance this project. And the very good thing is it's not affordable, quote unquote. Rather than increasing housing stock is actually.
interesting perspective. So to characterize that for those at home, Chris is suggesting that the cost of living proposal might skew what we consider to be low and high income and might preclude some housing projects, which is an interesting take. Sorry.
Sorry, I don't want to. I have to say, I find the argument, while I see the logic in there, it seems like when you're trying to determine people's cost of living, you want to have the best, the most accurate possible measurement of what cost of living is. And it's, even if you approach it from a fiscally conservative point of view, I don't know how you can't see the same way. That, I can see someone making an argument against the second situation, like creating an unnecessary bureaucracy when it doesn't do the duplicate work that's being done elsewhere. I thought it was fine. More accurate cost of living and one based on its obsolete or inaccurate.
Senator Gennardis wrote in the chat, it's my understanding that the new city poverty measure will be informational only and will not have any impact on benefit eligibility.
Okay, any other thoughts? Folks at home? All right, well, thank you, Jonna.
Thanks for having me. Sorry, I couldn't say which one.
Senator Gennardis, want to say hi?
Hello?
Hey, Senator.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Hey, everyone. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. Hope everyone's doing well. Just want to pop in and say a quick hello and to make a very big plug for whatever all of us can do in the next 19 days to make sure we're getting out the vote. I know that we are all exhausted, having gone through multiple races this year. I know we all feel tapped out, but the polls that we saw come out this week on the governor's race should be incredibly alarming. I can tell you, I'm hearing from some of my colleagues across the state, colleagues that were up by 5-10 points a month ago are now seeing their leads dwindle. So there is a real tightening happening across the board. And we really have to do whatever we can to help in every way possible. I know that folks in the club have been really helpful for some of our candidates here in Brooklyn, for Max, for Ewen, for others. I know that there are a bunch of events going on the next couple of weekends, and they're constantly looking for people to make phone calls and knock on doors. So whatever we can do together as a club would just be tremendous. We just can't risk it right now because there's just so much at stake. And I'm really nervous about where the margins are and where the trend lines are going. This is going to be a really bad election cycle if we don't do everything we can. Also on November 6th, I'm heading out to Long Island to help one of my colleagues, Senator Anna Kaplan. So if anyone wants to come out and join me and some other volunteers, we'd love to have some help. We're just trying to help everyone we can in the downstate region. Everyone that's asking me for help, we're trying to do what we can. So it's 19 days. Let's leave everything out on the field. I know we're all exhausted. I know we're all feeling burnt out. I know it's hard to get motivated when we see numbers where they are, but that's a reason just to double down on our enthusiasm and double down our commitments. And that's all I got for you. It's a really short, simple update. We got to get out there. As everyone here knows, I'm just making a friendly reminder.
Thank you, Senator. All right, you heard the guy. Get out the vote. All right, we also have our assembly member. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. So it's good to see you all. Sorry I'm late. I was at another event and just arrived. Hi there. Yes, right now we're focused on the race, and you know, in the 52nd, obviously we don't have a big general election coming up. We do obviously have to worry about our friend Max Rose in Staten Island and Southern Brooklyn. And we do have to worry, as Andrew mentioned, about the governor's race. There are increasingly, I'm hearing from colleagues that people are, because Lee Zeldin has told people that New York is safe, we have the Reproductive Health Act, nothing will happen, blah, blah, blah. People are saying, oh, it's okay. And they're voting for him because of fear about crime, all of that crime, that's the worst you've ever heard it, which is actually like nowhere near what it used to be. And they're making people feel scared. And that's what the Republicans do very well, is they fearmonger. And they are doing it again, and they're doing it pretty effectively. And Zeldin has a lot of money. He's got 5 PACs, 5 independent expenditure groups that are donating to him. And he is let's just remember, if you watch that Republican convention, who were the people from the House that spoke at the Republican convention? Elise Stefanik, who has completely lost her mind, and Lee Zeldin, who never had one. And so, and just spouting conspiracy theories. And of course, he voted against certifying the vote. So let us not forget that he's an insurrectionist. And as we know from the text messages now, he was much more actively involved in January 6th. So we need to make him pay for that. We need to send him wherever the heck he wants to go, but he's not going to go back to Congress. He does not deserve to go to Albany and be governor. Plus, and the governor put out something today about this. He's been speaking, of course, to Republican groups, and not unlike Mitt Romney with the binders full of women, he is promising that he will do away with the Reproductive Health Act in New York, right? He wants an all complete ban with no exceptions in New York State. And this is what he's telling his supporters. So he is not telling people who are not his supporters the truth. He is just lying about that. And we cannot give any possible opportunity to Lee Zeldin to become governor, because I know exactly what he'll do. Joan knows exactly what he'll do. It'll be in the budget. And we don't get paid until we pass a budget. So once April 1st comes, legislators don't get paid. And if we don't vote for a budget and reversing the Reproductive Health Act, he's going to keep everybody unpaid all year, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I just know that that's what he's going to try to do. And I'm not willing to let him do that. So we need to come out and support Kathy Hochul in every way we can. She will be here on the 5th, which is that Saturday before the election. She'll be at Grand Army Plaza. Right now, I believe they're going to be there around 1. I've suggested if they could get there a little earlier, that would be better, more voters. But they would really like for us to come out and be there and help fan out and help get out the vote and have people there so that she has a crowd of people supporting her when she's there. I will let you know if that timing has changed at all. And they really are looking for turnout. In the 52nd, the Democrats are going to win, right? It's not going to matter. But we need to pump up her vote in the 52nd. So we can't be complacent and not vote. We have to turn out the vote, not because I need more votes or because Andrew needs more votes, although we're happy to have your votes, but because we need for Kathy to build up her vote here in the 52nd Assembly District to make up for those people in Southeast Queens who have lost their minds and are thinking about voting for Lee Zeldin. And that is really the only message we have now, is to get turnout. So anything we can do to help with that. I just came from Eleanor's Legacy. They are creating a PAC to help women because, there are a lot of women being challenged around the state. And again, abortion is a big issue, and those people who have big general elections, this is a big problem for them. So we're trying to raise extra money to help, shore up that vote for Democratic women around the state. And so if you know people that can help contribute to that, whatever your networks, that's another way that you can help with the vote. Right now, my biggest priority is making sure that Kathy Hochul gets reelected or gets elected to the first full term as governor. And so, I'm going to be out there and I'll be out there in any way I can for her. Also, for those of us who can help with distribution of literature, maybe doing subway stops or what have you, I'm going to be working with the campaign to get that information so we can just make people know they have to come out and vote, because not everybody's reading our emails, so sometimes we just need to physically be out there at the green markets, at the subway stops, wherever we can to encourage people to come out and vote, that this is not a safe election for anybody. Thank you. Yeah. Saturday, the 5th, which is November 5th. So it's that Saturday before the election. Right? And yes,
Bail reform. He's trying to blame the crime rate on bail reform. What's the answer to that?
bullshit is the answer, right? So here's the thing. It's not bail reform. Bail reform, by the way, they wanted to repeal bail reform before it even went into effect. So, a couple of months ago, in fact, this was something I mentioned to the Times when I was interviewing with them. Zeldin is talking about bail. The mayor was talking about bail reform, blah, 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 right? And undoing bail reform. And the speaker had a very, very brief response. All of the crimes you're talking about are already bail eligible. We're done. The reality is everything they're complaining about are bail eligible, right? There is discretion in the courts. There is provision for repeat offenders, but I will tell you that the legislature is one thing. There are DAs, there are judges, right? There is new data on, for example, felony arrests. Well, there are a lot of felony arrests. 86% of the felony arrests don't result in a felony conviction. Most are dismissed, right? So that you have to look at that data a little bit more carefully. The other thing, of course, is that if you're a judge, name me what judge is going to send a guy to Rikers for stealing toothpaste. Even if they steal toothpaste every day for a week, are you sending somebody to Rikers for stealing toothpaste? It's a repeat offender. No. We have to address the issues of people getting a psych evaluation that really is going to be a competent evaluation and figure into what it is that's that release plan. But the reality is most of what they're talking about, 99 and 44 100% of what they're talking about are already bail eligible. And then the other thing, of course, is the fact that the data has shown, and that John Jay did a study, right, that showed, and it came out in like September, released on their own recognizance before bail reform and released on their own recognizance subsequent to bail reform laws. Actually, the RORs are lower now because when you have a conditional release, because you have to report in or you have to undergo this therapy or whatever, right? There are all sorts of ways that it's actually lower now since bail reform. So the reality is that the rearrest rate is not a problem. The rearrest rate is lower than Jersey. And by the way, Jersey put in dangerousness, which New York has never had. And they're arguing for that, but in fact, it hasn't changed the rearrest rate at all. And so all of this is really smoke and mirrors, and it's fear mongering, right? People may be frightened, and crime has gone up around the country. And certainly gun violence has gone up around the country. That has nothing to do with bail, right? Bail reform did not affect New Jersey. Bail reform did not affect other states. So we have to keep our eye on what this is and say, that is actually not true. If you're concerned, tell me what you're afraid of, and let's figure out how to address the real issue there. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Joanne. I'll see you bright and early at the BQE tomorrow. And we were supposed to have a speaker from the State Democratic Committee to talk about GOTV opportunities, as if you haven't heard about enough, but they couldn't make it. So it looks like Seamus has a link that he'll put in the chat where you can access those opportunities.
The person that was going to come speak, or this person who was going to come speak had a medical emergency, couldn't make it. So the state party is doing plenty of GOTV stuff for state Democrats up and down the ballot. Phone banks, text banks, canvases, and it's all available on their Mobilize page, mobilize.us/NYS Dems. We'll make sure to tweet out, Facebook, email, all the good stuff. Additionally, this is one thing that may be a little sort of different for a lot of people. The state party through the Democratic Lawyers Council is doing a lot of stuff in terms of voter protection. You do not have to be a lawyer to help out with that. I myself have been doing a weekly volunteer shifts. They're about 3 hours each. And basically people will call into a hotline. They'll ask basically simple things about like, how do I find out if I'm registered to vote? Where are the voting hours, things like that. You can help them out on that stuff. And if there are any issues, you report them. So this way it can go up the chain. It can be documented. And they do train you on all these things. And there are people there to assist you. If you, yeah. Yep, you do it straight from home. All you need is a computer. Yeah. No, it's not via that link, but I will send out the link for people to sign up with that and like attend the training and all that. Yes.
The question was whether it's just for New York voters, and
Yeah.
the answer is yes.
Yeah, the question was about how to sign up for this. We'll send out the information about how to help out with the Democratic Lawyers Council.
Thanks, Seamus. So that's it for the agenda tonight. Does anyone else have anything? Kenan?
Just some other GeoTV opportunities. I'll be going out to Long Island to help with Anna Kaplan. So Senator Ganaris is going the 6th. I'll be going October 30th and November 5th if anybody wants a ride. And probably also Election Day and probably also the day before Election Day, but TBD.
Thanks, Kenan. Joan? I don't know if we did. I wasn't at e-board. Seamus, do you know?
There was no decision made on that as far as I know.
We'll follow up with Alyssa and talk about next steps. Hopefully we'll have something for.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Let's do it.
And also, if anyone hasn't checked out the site recently, we have a new little events calendar there, so you can see all the stuff that is available here, like all the nice little information.
That looks really nice.
indbrooklyn.org/events.
All right. Any other business? Going once? Going twice? Motion to. Second? Thank you, everyone.